Okay, so this is not a difficult assignment, but like sometimes people have a hard time understanding what it is they're supposed to do here. So we're talking about globalization. This is where different countries are trading with each other, and trade has gone up, and as a result of that, the argument for globalization is people's standard of living is increased, wealth has increased, poverty has decreased, people are living longer. Okay, that trade between countries is a good thing. So this is a list of facts, Exhibit 2.3. Okay, it has tariffs. It shows you that they were at 40% in 1946. That's the end of World War II. And in 2005, they had decreased to 2.6%. It's a 37.4% decrease. It's significant. They look at foreign exchange trading. That's the buying and selling of currency. Okay. The thing to keep in mind is if you're a company and you're buying something from a factory over in China, you don't pay in dollars. You have to exchange your dollars for the currency of China, the yuan, and then you pay the people for the product, with their currency. It's the same thing. Like if you've ever gone traveling outside of the United States, Canada, Mexico, wherever, you have to exchange your dollars for their currency. Okay. Now, in some cases, if the dollar is stronger than their currency, they'll be more than happy to take your $9 if it costs 9 pesos. But not every country has a lower exchange rate than the United States. There are plenty of countries that have a higher exchange rate than the United States, meaning their money is worth more than a dollar. Okay? Then we have foreign direct investment. This is where a company from another country, so like let's say it's Japan, and let's say it's Sony Corporation. If Sony has a studio in California, that studio is in California, definitely, but the profits that studio makes go back to Japan. Okay, it's the same thing with, say, Apple. Apple doesn't make their own phones; they design them, but they have Foxconn over in China manufacture their phones. Okay, so that's an example, and you can see that it was $23 billion in foreign direct investment in 1975, and it's almost $1 trillion. Well, it's 644 billion in 1987, and it's well over a trillion dollars today. And then we have U.S. ownership in foreign stock. We've talked about what stock is before. It's ownership in a company. So this is where Americans are buying stock in foreign companies. So this could be that you own shares in Volkswagen or Samsung, something like that. Okay, it was 2% in 1980. It was 14% in 2005. Now I realize that the percentages aren't greatly different. I mean, 2% to 14% is a 12% increase, but like those shares could be worth billions or trillions of dollars. So it's a fairly significant amount of money here. Then we have membership in the World Trade Organization. Think of the WTO as the referee of trade between countries. People cheat in sports and games. And so there are rules there, and there are referees that enforce those rules. The WTO creates the rules with the consent of its membership, and then they also enforce those rules. So they act as a referee. So we had 18 countries that joined the WTO in 1948 and 148 in 2005, and there's more since then. And the most important one that's joined since 2005 is China. Okay, and then we have American workers working for foreign companies here in the United States. So like I own a Subaru, right? And that Subaru Outback was made in Indiana. Now the company is Australian, the car is Australian, but it was American workers who built that car in a Subaru factory in Indiana. Okay, so in the United States we had almost 5 million people working in foreign companies here in the United States, and in 2001 it went up to 6.5 million, and it's gone up since then. It's over 10 million now. Okay, so what you do here is you have 6 statements, and you want to show what happened, a decline in U.S. tariff rates. How did that lead to further globalization? So now you have to think in your mind here. In 1940, a product that you were going to buy from England cost 40% more than the product from the United States. Which one are you going to buy? Well, I know in your head you might be saying, well, it depends on how wealthy I am, things like that. But that's not how it works in economics. What you have to think about is, if one thing costs less than the other, that's the one that the person's going to buy. Okay. Now, if you look at the difference of 2%, okay, 2% still makes the foreign car or product more money, but there are all kinds of ways to differentiate that vehicle. Maybe it's four-wheel drive, maybe it's a luxury car, maybe it has a look that's aesthetically pleasing to you. But because it's 2% higher, not 40% higher, that changes people's behaviors, okay? And so that means that if you look at tariff rates dropping, Americans should be buying more foreign products, okay? Let me look at an increase in foreign exchange trading. The only reason you would ever want to buy another country's currency is if you intended to use it to buy products there. And so since there has been a huge increase in foreign exchange trading, that means that we are buying more goods. And they are buying more goods too. The thing that you always have to keep in mind here is, you're sitting in a U.S. classroom, so we focus on the U.S., but like Vietnam is buying more stuff from China. India is buying more stuff from China. China is buying more stuff from Germany. Germany's buying more stuff from Morocco. Morocco's buying more stuff from South Africa, okay? So this is a global thing. It's not just between like the United States and other countries. It's between all countries, okay? So that's what you would do. You would do the same thing for 4, 5, and 6. Now 6 is a little bit trickier because it's not listed up here, right? It's not any of these things, but we're just coming off Christmas break. And think about how easy it is to buy things because you can just go onto the internet. You can go to Amazon or whatever it is that you go to, Etsy, whatever, and you can buy things, okay? And that's because of communication. Imagine if you had to write a letter, you had to mail it, and it took weeks, months for it to get there. And then they had to create that product and then ship it to you, and you don't really know when it's going to come to you. Maybe it's 6 weeks. Right now, you can buy something from Amazon and fairly consistently get it within 48 hours, okay? Sometimes even less. So that's because of easier worldwide communication. Now there's more to it than that, but like just think about how has the telephone, well, let's go back. How has the telegraph changed things? The telephone changed things. Satellite, the internet, it's made it easier to buy things, okay, from everywhere. Now, question 7 to 9 rather, you just look at the factors that led to the recent globalization. This should be in your notes. It was on the presentation. Like, how did the end of the Cold War lead to increased trade? Remember, that was the graph that just showed like huge exponential growth in trade. Well, what is it about not trying to kill each other and instead trading with each other that led to further globalization? Same thing with advancing technology. Remember, it's not just the internet, but it was also like the size of ships, the fuel economy of vehicles, the airplanes, all that stuff. Like, how did that change in technology make it so that we have more globalization than at any point in the past, okay? And then policy changes. Specifically what I'm talking about here is government policy changes. What was it that the governments of the world did that made it easier to trade? And then 10 and 11, I want you to describe how each of these things is a good thing. Like, how is increased trade a good thing? How is having a higher standard of living a good thing? Okay, these are pretty broad responses. And then questions 12 to 14, I want you to summarize the response that a supporter, okay, a supporter of globalization, not somebody who's against globalization, because there are plenty of those people, that might offer for each. So we have a problem here, which is that we have a huge increase in income inequality. We have, a percentage, there's like a percentage of the population, it's very small. Let's say it's 2%, 3%, and they own 50% of the value of the world. That's not a good thing. That means 50% of the planet, how much income do they have? How much of the total value of global trade do they have? It's not very good. Okay, but you can still be a supporter of globalization and explain how, yes, this is not a good thing, income inequality. However, there are still good things that happen, even though this consequence of income inequality does happen. Okay, what about the loss of American jobs? This is a big deal. There are plenty of people who are really upset that Americans lose their job. Okay, and I can understand why they would be upset that they lost their job. But the thing of it is you're taking the side of a supporter of globalization, and you're going to try to answer what is it about this guy or this woman losing her job that, while that's terrible in and of itself, doesn't mean that we should stop globalization, because how does the benefit outweigh the cost? And then more power to big corporations. Again, how is this? It is a thing. It is real. But how is corporations becoming more powerful not outweigh the benefits of globalization? Okay? You're gonna have to think here. There's no answers that you're gonna find like in your notes. These are like you gotta put on your thinking cap, okay? Then the last question says, do you think Adam Smith or Karl Marx would be more supportive of globalization? First thing, it says, do you think? Okay? There's only one wrong answer here, and that is if you don't think. And I'm not asking you to pick both men. I'm asking you to pick one or the other. If you choose to answer with both, I can live with that. It's not the end of the world, but you have to pick one of the two. Just think about what globalization is, right? It's an increase in trade. Who would have been more supportive of that, Adam Smith or Karl Marx? And then explain to me why, okay? Think about the labor, the theory of labor, okay, from Karl Marx. Think about the invisible hand. Think about how Smith felt about free markets. And then think about what globalization is, and the answer is pretty apparent, okay? All right, that's the end of that. If you need me, you know how to reach me.